Imagine browsing at the bookstore and finding a book you like priced at $25. However, a quick check online reveals that you can get the same book for $20 at another bookstore that's 15 minutes away. Research shows that most people would make the 15-minute drive to save the $5. Now, imagine you're shopping for a new television. You find a model that you like for $700. However, a quick check online reveals the same television is $5 cheaper at a store also 15 minutes away. In this case, research suggests that most people would not make the 15-minute drive to save $5. So, why the difference? Why do we travel 15 minutes to save $5 on a book, but we don't do the same to save $5 on a television? Is 15 minutes of our time worth $5 or not? Logically, 15 minutes of our time should have a constant value, but we don't often see it this way. This scenario highlights a quirk in human reasoning. Our thinking is relative. The $5 saved on a $25 book represents 20% of the book's cost, making the savings significant relative to the cost of the book. However, the $5 saved on the $700 television is insignificant relative to the total cost of the television. This relative difference explains why we might travel 15 minutes to save $5 or not. Rarely do we think about something in isolation. Typically, we think about things in relation to other things. Let's explore this with another example. Consider two employees competing for a promotion. Employee A increases their sales by 10% over last year. Employee B only manages a 5% increase. Employee A looks like the obvious candidate for the promotion. However, a percentage increase is relative to last year's performance and doesn't really tell the whole story. Maybe employee A performed so poorly last year that a 10% increase was a given, while employee B has been a consistently high performer, making their 5% increase actually more impactful than employee A's contribution. When we think in relative terms, we may be missing the bigger picture. Our tendency to think in terms of relativity can also impact our well-being. Unfortunately, we often compare ourselves to others to gauge our own success and happiness. If we compare our friends' lavish vacations to our own short weekend trip, we might feel less satisfied. These social comparisons are hard to avoid, and many of them happen subconsciously. Logically, we know that lavish vacations are no indication of success or happiness. However, these social comparisons are emotional thoughts, not logical ones, which makes them difficult to control. Journalist and social critic H.L. Mencken wrote, "A man's satisfaction with his salary depends on whether he makes more than his wife's sister's husband." This quote illustrates both our tendency for relative comparison and how haphazard and misguided our comparisons can be. So, how might we overcome this bias of relativity? The key is self-awareness. Now that we understand how relativity skews our perceptions, we have to have the self-awareness to know when we are affected by it. Self-awareness involves understanding our own thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. We can build our self-awareness by engaging in self-examination. Ask yourself, am I thinking objectively, or am I making a relative comparison? Answering questions like this will help you to better understand your motivations and thought processes, which in turn will allow for more rational behavior. Another simple method to help overcome the bias of relativity is to live to your values. If you value money more than time, then spending 15 minutes to save $5 makes sense. But it might not if you value your time more than money. Neither is right or wrong. The key is to understand what you value and always act accordingly. Living to your own values will also help with social comparisons. The actions of others will fade in significance when you are focused on what is important to you. How other people spend their time and money is a representation of their values. How you spend your time and money should be a representation of yours. Being mindful of relativity helps us make more balanced and informed decisions. By applying self awareness, we can save ourselves from the trap of relative thinking. This enhanced self control is like a superpower that allows us to think clearly and logically, ultimately rewarding us with better outcomes.